What did we discuss yesterday? So yesterday, basically, we were going through the terms which will be used in this course. We have seen the certain definitions like cell, prokaryotic cell, or eukaryotic cell. Do you remember what was the difference between the prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell? Difference or example? It will be boring if you don't if you don't speak. It will be boring for you. Or do you remember the differences between DNA and RNA?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could you describe the differences?
Sir, DNA has adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine.
Okay.
RNA has that, but doesn't have thymine, but instead it has uracil.
Okay. Very good. This was the
Okay.
major difference. Second.
Sir, in one chemical compound that you showed, so RNA has a methyl group, but DNA doesn't.
Okay. Anything
And
else?
mm, sir, DNA is double stranded.
Yes.
Deoxyribose.
Yes. So if you go with the name deoxyribonucleic acid and ribonucleic
Yes, sir.
acid,
Sir,
so what?
sir,
What?
actually, I was saying somebody muted me.
Okay. Okay. So what was that difference with respect to the if we go with the name?
Uh, yes, sir. Deoxyribose and
Okay.
ribose.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. So these are the four major differences which you just described. Okay. So today we will go through these rest of the terms, and still I have few more things to discuss in context of DNA. What was the difference between a nucleotide and a nucleoside?
sir, I think presence of phosphate.
Yes. So if you add a phosphate group to nucleoside, then it will be nucleotide. That is the difference between these two terms. Okay, now coming to the nomenclature, how we are going to name the nucleoside and nucleotide. Okay, so we know that these are the bases: adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, and uracil. These are the purine and pyrimidine base. Okay, so corresponding nucleoside what should be the name of the corresponding nucleoside? In case of adenine, when you add sugar molecule, and we know that ribose is the sugar in case of RNA, right? So adenine plus ribose, sugar. So it is going to be adenosine. The corresponding nucleoside corresponding to adenine, it is going to adenosine. While in case of DNA, it is going to be deoxyadenosine. For guanine, it is going to be guanosine. And in the DNA, it is going to be deoxyguanosine. Coming to cytosine, cytosine plus sugar, it is going to be cytidine. And in case of DNA, it is going to be deoxycytidine. Coming to thymine, so nucleoside corresponding to thymine, it is going to be thymidine or deoxythymidine. In case of uracil, it is going to be uridine. So these are the names of the nucleosides corresponding to each base. Coming to nucleotides, so now you can imagine adenosine plus phosphate group. Okay, and phosphate group is attached, yesterday we have seen, at the 5' position. So the name is going to be adenosine 5' monophosphate. Similarly, for guanine, it is going to be guanosine 5' monophosphate, then cytidine 5' monophosphate, and uridine 5' monophosphate, like that. In case of RNA, then in case of DNA, it is going to be deoxyadenosine 5' monophosphate, and like that. Okay, so you should remember this nomenclature, like what is the corresponding nucleoside name, what is the corresponding nucleotide name. As we have discussed yesterday, that DNA or RNA, they are polymer of nucleotides. So here, this is a bigger picture or better picture to visualize that. Here you are seeing that A represents your adenine, which is attached to this ribose sugar, or sorry, deoxyribose sugar, and here you have phosphate group at the 5' end. Then you can see that this particular nucleotide, which is, can you name it now? What is the name of this nucleotide?
Adenine.
No. Deoxy, because it is DNA, it should be deoxy. It is A, so it should be adenosine, deoxyadenosine monophosphate. Okay.
Sir, right now you asked for nucleotide, right?
Yes, nucleotide.
Okay, sir.
Right. So the name of this nucleotide is going to be deoxyadenosine 5' monophosphate. What is the name of this nucleotide here?
Deoxythymide 3'.
No. So for remember, this phosphate group is always attached at the 5' position of any nucleotide. Okay, so at the 3' position, we will be like at the end, we will be having 3' end, which is where you will be having OH group, where there is no other nucleotide. Okay, suppose this is the length of the DNA and this is the last nucleotide. So it will be having 3' OH group, because there is no other nucleotide to add to this position. So the name here, the name is going to be deoxythymidine 5' monophosphate. So what is the message? That nucleotides are attached. You can see here the A is attached. So simply I will say A. So this A is attached to T here with the help of a phosphate group, and this particular bond which is highlighted, it is called phosphodiester linkage or phosphodiester bond. Okay, so in DNA, the nucleotides are attached together in this particular direction, like 3' to 5' direction, with the help of a phosphodiester bond. And in this way, if you have a strand of DNA, always a strand of DNA will be having a 5' end and 3' end. At the 5' end, you will be having a phosphate group, and at the 3' end, you will be having a OH group. Okay, so this is all about your structure of DNA. Polymer of nucleotide, where nucleotides are attached with the help of a phosphodiester bond between the 3' and 5' end. And in this way, there is a direction, there is a polarity, I will say, in this strand. One end is called 5' end, which will be having a free phosphate group, and other end will be 3' end, where you will be having a OH group. Similarly, in the RNA, only thing is there will not be any T, you will be having U. And instead of deoxyribose, you will be having ribose. Otherwise, other things are same. Here also you have phosphodiester bond, you have phosphate group at the 5' end, and you have a OH group at the 3' end. So remember that you have two ends in the structure of DNA. One is 5', one is 3, second one is 3'. And what is the difference? At 5' end, you have phosphate group. On the other hand, at the 3' position, you have OH group. Any doubt here with respect to DNA, RNA structure, or with respect to naming of nucleotide or nucleoside? Okay, so let's
Sir,
move.
once can you
Yes.
show the previous slide? The previous slide.
Yes.
Uh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Done.
Should we move now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So now this slide shows the people actually who uh, who discovered the structure of DNA. So here you are seeing a guy on the this guy who is handling one particular machine. This is Dr. Wilkin, and he was the like this guy was very famous for his X-ray crystallography work. Okay, so physics people will be knowing better about this technique, X-ray crystallography. The structure of DNA was discovered by this particular technique, X-ray crystallography. And this lady, Rosalind Franklin, she was a postdoc. She was doing research under this guy, and it was it was her experiment, and this is her data, X-ray diffraction data, which she got. I'm not a X-ray, like I'm not a guy who can explain this picture, but according to the people who are expert in this field, they say that this is the most beautiful X-ray photograph of any substance ever taken. And this was the basis. Based on this, the structure of DNA was discovered. Unfortunately, this lady died because she was exposed to X-rays during this experiment. Okay, and she died in 1958. Later on, the Nobel Prize was given in 1962, and because the Nobel Prize is given to the living scientist, and this lady actually missed that. Otherwise, she could have got the Nobel Prize for her contribution in the discovery of structure of DNA. But the discovery of structure of DNA, that was the like most significant or earth-shaking discovery in the history of biological science. It this discovery completely changed the biology. The biology was different before 1953, and after 1953, the biology was different. There was a transition. There was a transition, big transition in the biology. And according to her X-ray crystallography data, DNA is a double-stranded structure, or it looks like a double helical structure. The structure of DNA is a helical structure. So if you see here, can you comment something like what you understand based on this diagram? Suppose you want to describe this structure of DNA, what will you say? You can see the arrangement of your phosphate group. You can see the arrangement of sugar. You can see the arrangement of base. Then try to understand or try to describe the structure of DNA.
सर
Yes.
सर अगर जो ये आपने अभी डायग्राम दिखाया है तो सर इसके अंदर हम
Yes.
सेम बेस पेयर फेस नहीं कर सकते एक दूसरे को, कर सकते हैं?
Same base pair means like A to A.
यस सर.
Okay. I will answer your question. So can you people make any statement on this structure of DNA?
Sir, in this we can say that the adenosine and thymine are having 2 hydrogen bonds, but C and G are having 3 hydrogen bonds.
Okay. Anything else, guys?
Sir, we can say that it is a polymer of nucleotides.
Okay. Polymer of nucleotide, and then second point is your hydrogen bond. Okay. Third.
Sir, A is attached to T, or T is
Okay.
attached to A, and C to G and G to C, but not like A to G or A to C.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Okay, I will add some more points. If you see this structure, the first point will be that the structure of DNA is a helix. That is the first thing. Second, it is a polymer of nucleotide, which we can see here. Third point is that adenine always pairs with T, always. And how it is going to pair? With the help of 2 hydrogen bonds. Okay, so there is a rule which is called Chargaff rule. That was a scientist who was working on, like, before the DNA structure was revealed, he was working on the DNA. And what he found, he isolated the DNA from different organisms, like plant cell, animal cell, in case of human also, like from different cell, and bacteria, yeast. And when he analyzed the chemical composition of that, he found that it is the adenine which always pairs with T, and G always pairs with C. Okay. Later on, it was revealed when X-ray crystallography data came into picture, and the same finding was there, that adenine always pairs with T with the help of 2 hydrogen bonds, and G always pairs with C with 3 hydrogen bonds. And that is called Chargaff rule. Okay. Then, so in that way, what can we say? That purine to pyrimidine ratio, what it should be? Can you
50,
comment
50.
something?
1:1.
1:1. Because here A, it is purine, and this purine is making bond with a particular pyrimidine, which is T here, thymidine, and guanine, it is purine here, which is forming bond with C, which is pyrimidine here. Okay, so now coming to the question that whether A can pair with A or A can pair with G. So when that kind of model was created, if you consider A versus A or A versus G, the width is going to be more. And while X-ray crystallography data revealed that the width of the DNA, this here, if we consider, this width, if I remember correctly, it was 0.2 nanometer, if I am correct. If we consider, or maybe I have that, no, I don't have here. Maybe I can share with you people next time. When we consider purine and purine bonding, purine versus purine, it is going to be more. And when we consider pyrimidine versus pyrimidine, it is going to be less. So this was the only combination which was able, by which we were able to explain this width 0.2 nanometer when A is forming bond with T and G is forming bond with C. That was the only explanation which holds true for this width. Other combinations were not fitting. Third point is that this double helical structure has the backbone, and which is made of sugar and phosphate. Okay, if you see here, the backbone is made of this ring, which is nothing but a phosphate group, and this 5-carbon sugar is here. So sugar and phosphate group, they are making the backbone of the DNA. On the other hand, the bases are towards inside. Bases are towards inside, right? They are not on the backbone, they are inside. Okay, and you can see the polarity that one end is called 5' end and the second one is called 3' end of the DNA. Okay, so remember this rule what we discussed, that adenine is going to form with hydrogen bonds, and always two hydrogen bonds are possible according to their structure between A and T, and 3 bonds are three hydrogen bonds are there between G and C. What is the importance of this? Like if you have a DNA where GC content is high, suppose you have 2 DNA samples. You have 2 DNA sample, DNA 1 and DNA 2. Here GC content is, let's say, 60%, and here GC content is 30%. Which DNA is going to be more stable?
So 60%.
Yes. So that is the idea. Like in biotech lab, it is very important when we do the experiment. Sometimes we have to consider the stability of the DNA. So that time we generally count the GC percentage in the DNA samples, and accordingly we say that which DNA is going to be more stable. Any doubt here with respect to structure of DNA?
Sir, GC is more stable because of more hydrogen bonds.
Yes, because here you have three hydrogen bonds. Yes.
Okay,
So yeah, one more thing, like can we now think like what are the different bonds which are responsible for making this structure of DNA? What kind of bonds are there? You can use the concept which we discussed yesterday and today. You have to just name the bonds. Or let me ask you, just now we have seen first one is definitely hydrogen bond, you can say. Second one, can you name the bond which is here? between sugar and the base. What is the name of this bond?
Glycosidic bond.
Yes, glycosidic bond. Then between one nucleotide and second nucleotide, where you have the phosphate group, it is
Phosphodiester bond.
phosphodiester bond. So remember these three bonds: phosphodiester bond, glycosidic bond, and hydrogen bond. Okay, so this is a simple view of a eukaryotic cell where you are seeing that nucleus contains the genetic material in the form of chromosomes. How many chromosomes do we have in our cells?
46, sir.
46. Okay, there are two types of cell in our body. One is called somatic cell. Okay, so first one is somatic cell, and second one is gamete. Somatic cells means all the cells of our body which are not part of the reproduction system. Cheek cell, heart cell, neurons, RBC, WBC, those are the examples of somatic cells. Gamete cells means the sex cells which are involved in the reproduction. In case of human, sperm cells. In case of girl, egg cells. So they are gamete cells. There is a difference with respect to the number of chromosomes. Somatic cells, they will have the complete set, 46, which is represented by 2n. On the other hand, the gametes, they will have half of the number of the chromosome, only 23. Okay, so this is very this is very important to know or to remember that gametes, these are the cells which are involved in the reproduction, and they have half of the number of the chromosomes which are available in the somatic cells. Okay, now coming back to the picture which we have here. So you are seeing that nucleus consists of chromosomes, and in human beings the number of chromosomes are 46. Then each chromosome basically is made of DNA, and this DNA will consist of several genes. Okay, DNA will consist of several genes. There will be some space between both the genes, that is called intergenic space, where we don't know what that space is doing. Still we do not know the answer. This is a holistic view of entire body. Like our body is made of 100 trillion cells. Each cell will contain the entire human genome. Exceptions are there to this statement. We are saying that each cell contains the entire human genome. Exceptions are there. We have certain cells in our body where there is no DNA, surprisingly. RBCs, your red blood cells, there is no DNA in RBC. Okay, that is important for their function. Then in the nucleus we have the human genome, and very importantly, the chromosome basically consists of DNA, which is very folded structure. Okay, otherwise the length of the DNA is quite big, it cannot fit into the nucleus. That DNA has to loop or fold up back so much that it can fit into the nucleus. You can see that here the supercoiling is there. The DNA which is present in the nucleus, that is present in the supercoiled form. Otherwise, when we unfold the DNA, it is going to be a double helical structure. But this double helical structure, when it is there in the cell, it is going to fold so much that it forms a supercoiled structure in such a way that it can fit into a nucleus. And this supercoiling of the DNA happens due to certain proteins which interact with the DNA and induces this supercoiling. Those proteins are called histone proteins. Let me have the pen. Okay, I'm not going to discuss that in detail. So those proteins are called histones. Histones, they interact with the DNA and induces the supercoiling so that the DNA can fit into the nucleus. Any doubts so far, whatever we have discussed with respect to DNA or RNA? If there is no question, let's move to the next molecule, which is RNA. RNA structure is described. We have described the structure of RNA. Here, this is a brief information about the types of RNA. How many types are there? So, according to the very early research, we have mainly three types, which you can see here. Those are called mRNA. mRNA is nothing but the messenger RNA, and tRNA, which is nothing but transfer RNA, and ribosomal RNA. And this is the percentage. If we isolate RNA from the total RNA from the cell, we will find that 80 to 85% proportion is ribosomal RNA, 10 to 15% is tRNA, and 5% is mRNA. But later on, like this is according to very old research, but according to latest research, there are several other types of RNA, but their percentage is going to be very minute in the cell, like microRNA, siRNA, or there are so many other types. Their percentage is very, very less, 1% or even less than 1%. Okay, so we are going to sometime we can maybe at some place we can have discussion on these three types: mRNA, tRNA, and rRNA. They play important role in the synthesis of protein. Messenger RNA means it consists of a sorry, there was a power cut. Let's resume our lecture. Okay. So messenger RNA means the RNA which consists of message. Message for what? Message for protein synthesis. What kind of protein cell want to synthesize? That is the meaning of messenger. Okay. The transfer RNA and ribosomal RNA, transfer RNA and rRNA, you can just remember that they play a very important role in the protein synthesis. Let's have a brief idea about the synthesis of the protein. So this is the central dogma of molecular biology, which shows how the information is flowing in the cell. So you have DNA which can replicate to produce its own copy. That process is called DNA replication, by which DNA makes copy of itself. Then this DNA can be used as a template to synthesize RNA by a process called transcription. Okay. DNA can be used as a template to synthesize all different types of RNA, whatever we have, mRNA, rRNA, and tRNA, by the process which is known as transcription. On the other hand, this RNA can be used as a template to synthesize DNA also by the process called reverse transcription. But this reverse transcription doesn't happen in our body. It is restricted to, and we can do this reverse transcription in the lab. Otherwise, in the cellular system, this reverse transcription is not possible. Then finally, that RNA can be used as a template to synthesize protein by the process called translation. And only mRNA, it is the mRNA which is converted into the protein. rRNA and tRNA, they play important role, but they are not converted into the protein. And all transcription, translation, reverse transcription, all together, this is central dogma of molecular biology. And these are the protein molecules. Ultimately, when the protein is produced, that is the responsible for a particular trait. Any doubt here in this process of dogma? What do you mean by a trait? It's written that DNA to RNA, RNA to protein, and protein is responsible for trait. What do you mean by this word?
Sir, features like hair color, eye color.
Yes. Eye color or even your height. So whatever we observe, that is called trait, or in other word, any other name which is used.
So characteristics.
Characteristic, or even in genetics several times we use this word, and we will be using this word phenotype. We will say what is the phenotype of that plant. Okay, so that means we are asking about like your whatever you say, the color, height, right? Those things, trait or phenotype. So here also I am stressing on this point that ultimately it is the protein molecule which is responsible for trait or function or characteristic. It is the protein molecule, which is ultimately the source is DNA. From DNA, the information is flowing from the DNA. Okay, so we have defined the DNA, RNA, their structure. Now coming to the protein part. Protein, they are also polymers, but here you can see that they are polymer of something called amino acids. Okay, this is a simple structure of amino acid, a carbon atom which is attached to COO minus, NH3 plus, H and R. And this R is going to be different because in our cellular system, in our body, we have 20 different amino acids. Okay, like DNA is made of 4 bases, A, T, G, and C. Only 4 are there. But in case of protein, this number is increased now. Here we have 20 amino acids which can make the protein molecule. How those amino acids are going to be different? This R is different in all those 20 amino acids. Otherwise, the amino acid structure is the same, CO minus HR and H3 plus. Only thing is R is variable here. What are the names of those 20 amino acid? Big list is there. You can remember at least few of them. Alanine, arginine, asparagine. So 20 amino acids are there. What is the characteristic of these amino acids? That some amino acids, if you see their structure, what is common? That they are non-polar based on their side chain, which is R. You can see the R here in the glycine. It is the simplest amino acid where R is H. In case of alanine, this R is CH3. In case of valine, R is this CH3, CH3. So this R is, you can see that it is variable in these amino acids, and the characteristic which is same, which is common in all these amino acids, they have a non-polar side chain. On the other hand, we have certain amino acids which consist of which are called polar amino acids because of their side chain. You can see here. Okay, so we have 20 amino acids and they are responsible for the protein. Now, how these amino acids are joined together? In case of DNA, what was the bond which was joining the nucleotide?
Glycosidic.
No, nucleotides are joined by the phosphodiester bond, right? Okay, in case of protein, this bond by which the one amino acid and second amino acids are joined, it is called a peptide bond. Okay, let's see how this peptide bond is formed. This is first amino acid and this is the second one. What is going to happen during protein synthesis? That COO minus of the first amino acid is going to combine with the amino group of the second one. Okay, with the release of water, they will form a bond between CO now and CO and NH. This particular bond is called peptide bond. So if you see this structure here, one end will be having the NH3 plus and the second end will be having the COO minus. So here also you see the polarity. Like one end, it is called N-terminal end. In the structure of DNA, we were having 5' end and 3' end. In case of protein, we have N-terminal end and C-terminal end. N represents amino terminal end, C represents carboxy terminal end. Simple. Okay. So proteins are polymers of amino acids and 20 amino acids are there which differs from each other with respect to their R group, and all these amino acids are joined together by the peptide bond. So now you can imagine the protein basically in a linear fashion, but in the cellular system they are not actually linear. The structure of the protein is highly folded. You can see here the structure of the protein is highly folded. And why it is highly folded? Because of so many bondings are there, which you can see here. All different types of bonds which you can think they are possible in the structure of protein. You can see the hydrophobic interactions between the side chains. Maybe here one amino acid is there, second amino acid here, and between their R groups, hydrophobic interaction is possible. Hydrogen bond is possible. Disulfide bond, covalent bond is there. Ionic bonds, those are possible. Okay, so all different time those are possible. That is responsible for this highly folded structure. What is the importance of this structure? Is that if this structure is changed, okay. So remember, I am making a statement that if the structure is gone of a protein, that means function is also gone. That protein is not going no longer be functional. It is not going to do its job. There are so many examples in medical biotechnology or medical science where because of mutation which is there at the genetic level, genetic mutation, the structure of the protein is changed. And that's why when the structure is changed, that protein is not going to work in the cellular system and it will lead to a particular. This is any doubt here in case of protein with respect to its structure, function? Let's move to the next molecule, which is enzyme. So enzyme, similar to the catalyst, generally which are used in chemistry to catalyze a reaction, here in the cellular system, we have the biocatalyst, which are enzymes. If I have to describe enzyme in one word, that word is going to be biocatalyst. And generally, most of the enzymes are usually proteins. Some are RNA, some people found that some of the RNA molecules, they also have the catalytic activity, but in our course we are going to focus on the enzymes which are proteins. Okay, and basically they have a particular site which is called active site, that a particular substrate can fit into this site. Okay, these enzymes are very specific. That is the property of the enzyme, that they are very specific for the substrate because of the active. They have a like the structure of this active site, because here this substrate bind to the, and it can bind to the active site if it can fit here. You can see that your substrate is having a structure which is fitting here in this active site. If the substrate is having a structure which cannot fit into the active site, chemical reaction is not going to happen. So substrate that chemical reaction will take place. Some of the very common enzymes which are known, like we have one particular enzyme which is called amylase in the saliva, and that is responsible for break down the sugar, which, like, we are eating a polymer of sugar, so that this particular enzyme amylase, it is going to work. It will digest this big sugar molecule into the simple sugar molecule. Okay, so it helps in the digestion. Coming to the nomenclature of enzyme, I will tell a general rule. Whenever in biology you see any word which is ending with ASE, anything which is ending with A, you can see here there was some internet issue. What I was explaining here, did you hear anything with respect to nomenclature?
No, sir. Sir, even a little bit before slide also, amylase and slide.
Yes, sir, your voice
Okay.
was breaking.
Okay, yes. Okay, let me explain here. So, like, I was giving the example of enzyme here. Okay, this is very common enzyme which is there in our saliva, amylase. What it is going to do, this amylase is going to break down the a polymer of sugar, like we so that food will be having a polymer of sugar, and the job of this amylase is like here it is represented by this structure. So it is going to digest the big molecule of sugar to convert the into some simple sugar like glucose. That is the job of this. I was explaining the nomenclature. I was saying that whenever in biology you see any word ending which is ending with any word, that means it is an enzyme. For example, if you see amylase consists of ASE at the end, that means it is an enzyme. Okay, urease, if you read here ASE, that means it is the name of an enzyme. Lactase, ASE, that means it is an enzyme. Okay, here also ASE. Wherever you see ASE at the end in biology, that means it is an enzyme. It is a biocatalyst. Okay, some exceptions are there because of the historical reasons. Like here, pepsin, chymotrypsin, trypsin, these are the enzymes, but they do not end with ASE. This is just because of the historical reason. Like these are very initial enzymes, and still they have the same name which was given at that time. Otherwise, you are discovering a new enzyme today, you have to follow this nomenclature that its name should end with AS. So the enzymes like which you will be seeing in this course, they will be having this particular, they will be following this nomenclature. They will be having ASE at the end. Again, one of the very common, one of the most famous example of enzyme, that enzymes are there in the washing powder also. Okay, that is good to remember that Ariel, it was the first detergent which was having the enzyme. What enzymes are there in Ariel? Protease. That means, what do you mean by protease? That means the enzyme can break down, because sometimes we have the gravy stains or egg stain on the clothes, even in the blood stains. So proteins are there in egg also, in gravy also, blood also, proteins are there. So we should have protease. That's why this Ariel, they included protease in the detergent. Amylase, which can break down the starch, because the food material gravy, that will be having the carbohydrate. So carbohydrate part can be broken down by amylase. Definitely fat will be there, grease. So to break down them, lipase should be there, so which can degrade lipid. Okay, so these are some of the simple examples which you people can remember. Easy to remember. Okay, so basically we are done with the basics. I am done with the vocabulary, and from the next lecture we will start the actual course, which is genetics. Okay, I will stop here. If you have any doubt in today's lecture, you are most welcome to ask. Go through this vocabulary very carefully. If you have any doubt, you must be
Sir,
clear.
in the lecture
Yes.
you told phenotype is trait. So what is genotype?
Okay. Genotype means, like, that is going to be in the next lecture. Genotype means it represents the gene which is responsible for that particular. Okay, like we have different genes, like the gene which is
Sir, actually
responsible
somebody
for
just
eye color.
sir actually, sir actually somebody just removed me from the meeting, so I couldn't listen.
Your voice is breaking, Aryan. Can you repeat what you are saying?
Sir, again somebody removed me from the meeting.
Oh, okay. So yes, although we are going to discuss genotype tomorrow, but genotype basically is going to represent your gene. Like we have different genes for different phenotypes. The gene which is responsible for, let's say, hair color. Okay, that gene is different. Okay, so different genes are there for different traits. So genotype basically it is the representation of a gene itself. I will say. I will discuss genotype in detail tomorrow so that you can understand. But it is the representative of gene, genotype.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else, guys?
So not directly related to this, but like I was like a few like last month I was reading about
Any other doubt, guys?
hello. So can you hear me?
Hello? Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah.
someone removed me.
Yeah.
So can you make us attendees, because
Sir, somebody is muting Sunish again and again.
hello.
Okay. So what is the solution? Yes.
So you
Sir, make all of us attendees, sir. The person who's doing this wouldn't have the right to
Okay,
mute us
okay,
and then
okay, okay. Okay,
hello.
I will do that. Yeah. Okay, so I will do that. Okay, maybe like if you have some doubt, please email me or we can discuss.
Sir, have you upload these PPTs on LMS?
That it will be available by tonight. Okay.
Hello, sir, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, before that, if anyone wants to leave, you can. I think you can leave because lecture is over. Please don't remove me again. So, sir, I was asking
Yeah. That is.
uh,
Yes.
recently AlphaFold was there was a lot of hype around AlphaFold, and in the articles it was written like it took like 5 decades to be able to get the structure of the protein from the just the acid names. They were able to get the structure, and it was written like uh, the protein structure is what is responsible for the function it does. So like how does the acid name is same but they have like different structures, so how does the structure affect the
Function. Okay. So basically, uh, do you know any genetic disorder?
hello?
Hello. Yes. Yeah. I was saying that. Do you know any genetic disorder?
Sir, one albino and sir, second one, I don't remember the name, but in that the blood doesn't clot. That is also a genetic disorder.
Okay. So maybe like I will explain in the next lecture. Like your question is really good. Like how when the structure is changed, how the function is going to change. I will take the example of a genetic disorder. I'll mention like how it is possible that structure is going to determine the function. Okay, it is going to take some time.
Okay, sir.
Maybe like, yeah, I will explain that. Really good.
All right, thank you, sir.
Anything? Okay, yeah. Anything else, guys? Okay, so if there is no other question, I will end this session here, and I will upload the PPT on the LMS. Okay, take care. Bye.